Hi, my name is Dr. Caxton Perry. We're looking at sexually satisfying events data submitted by Sprout for getting approval from the FDA for FSIAD, female sexual interest arousal disorder. In other words, low sexual desire. What is it about the data that makes us ask questions? Someone like myself will have loved to prescribe Addyi because I love seeing people build beautiful relationships, and I've also understood the medical complications associated with bad marriages and divorce. We're going to look at the data from Sprout Pharmaceuticals that they submitted to the FDA. This is published as BRUDAC documents. But first, we're going to start with studies 71. We're going to look at study 75 and study 147. And both in all three studies, these were the pivotal studies that were used. There were several others, but the FDA felt some of them didn't cut the mark. They didn't reach the mark or standard that they wanted. Okay, so they used these three. They are called pivotal studies. Nothing wrong with some of your studies not meeting the standards, as long as they are those studies that do meet the standard. It can be applied to approval for a new drug application. So here we have study 71, study 75, and study 147. In both groups, in all three studies, there are two groups. One with Flibanserin 100 milligrams at night, and another one without Flibanserin. Instead of Flibanserin, we have a placebo. So we have Flibanserin 100 milligrams group, placebo group in each of the three studies. That means 6 groups. 3 of them take Flibanserin 100 milligrams at night, another 3 placebo alone. So in study 71, the first one we're going to look at baseline, they have a number of sexually satisfying events, and at 24 weeks, they have a number of sexually satisfying events. If Flibanserin works, there should be an increase. And my challenge to you is, does it really work? You look at the data, you ask that question, and you answer for yourself. Thank you for watching. First, we're looking at study 71. In study 71, at baseline, there were 3 sexually satisfying events. 3. At 24 weeks, in the group, the sexually satisfying events had gone up to 4. In the placebo group, at baseline, it was 2 sexually satisfying events, and at 24 weeks, it had gone up to 2.8. In the Flibanserin 100 milligram group, in study 71, at baseline, it was 2, and at 24 weeks, it was 3.0. In the placebo group, at baseline, it was 2, and at 24 weeks, it was 2.8 sexually satisfying events. In the last final study, 147, in the Flibanserin group, again, the initial sexually satisfying event at baseline was 2 per month, and at 24 weeks, 4 per month. Okay. In the placebo group, in that same study, at baseline, it was 2.0, and at 24 weeks, it was 3.0. So, all we now need to do is to say, what was the difference between the placebo group and the Flibanserin treated group? So they did 2 types of differences. First, they asked the question, what is the difference between Flibanserin at baseline and Flibanserin at the end of 24 weeks? They got a number. Then they said, what is the difference between placebo at the beginning and placebo at the end of 24 weeks? They got another number when they subtracted those. Okay? So with those 2 numbers, they now say, okay, we now have to subtract the Flibanserin number, or rather, the placebo number from the Flibanserin number to get another set of differences. And that's what we're going to look at next. So for Flibanserin 100 milligrams, when you subtract baseline from 24, you get a median of 1. That's what we're told. When we get to the placebo group, I'm going to put the number X there. Okay? In the second study, study 75, at 24 weeks, when it's subtracted, baseline subtracted from 24 weeks, you get 1.0. And for placebo, you get 0.5. They call this median because of some variations. Not mean, but median. Okay? We are going to try and calculate or guesstimate what the number X means. We have two studies to help us derive or attempt to derive the number X. And I'll tell you why number X is extremely important. In Flibanserin, in the third study, Flibanserin group, they have a mean difference of 1.0 again, and a mean difference between placebo at baseline and placebo at 24 weeks of 0.5. So when you subtract in each study, there are three studies, 71, 75, 147. When you subtract X from 1, 0.5 from 1, 0.5 from 1, you'll get the numbers I'm going to show you next. Watch what those numbers are. For 147, we're going to start with the last study. It's 0.5. That's called the treatment difference. So that treatment difference is how Sprout was able to claim that Flibanserin, the pink pill, aka female Viagra for some, it's based on these numbers that you're going to see here that Sprout now made the claim that Flibanserin, Addyi, is able to increase sexually satisfying events by at least 0.5 to 1. Now, I'll ask you the question, which I did ask in the book. What is the significance of half a sexually satisfying event? What does that really mean to a sexually starved marriage? Half a sexually satisfying event. So 1 minus 0.5 gives you 0.5. Again, 1 minus 0.5 gives you 0.5. So Sprout is saying, yes, Flibanserin increases sexually satisfying events by 0.5 in two studies and by 1.0 in this study. But if you look carefully, in the placebo group in study 71 and in the placebo group in study 75, when you subtract, no matter how bad it is, the placebo effect, obviously in this study, is not 0. Yet Sprout is telling us that 1 minus x equals 1.0, meaning x is 0. What Sprout is basically telling us is that in study 71, the placebo effect is 0. Now, you don't need to be a serious student of pharmacology or medicine to know that the placebo effect cannot be 0, particularly not for this study. And the number here that I put in asterisk 2, this number is why Sprout is saying that Addyi, Flibanserin, the pink pill, increases sexually satisfying events by 1 extra per month. That's not really possible because X can never be 0. X is the placebo effect for study 71. That number, the placebo number for 75, study 75 is 0.5. For study 147 it's 0.5. How can it be 0 for this? Yet, when you look at table number 8 on page 30 of the BRUDAC documents that were submitted to the FDA, X is given a number of 0. And with the introduction of the number 0 as a placebo effect, median change for placebo as 0. You can see how they arrived at 1 sexually satisfying event, and it looks big. There are a few other things I want to tell you though. Not only is this not correct or inaccurate, it's false. Number 2, a placebo effect is not 0. And whatever number you give, it's got to be pretty close to the number for placebo for study 75. It cannot be 0. Number 2, one sexually satisfying event. Buy your wife a little bit of chocolate. Help her in the house. Smell nice. Look good. Get in shape. And you might just be able to what? Bring her out of that phase. Because there are multiple factors involved in the development of female sexual interest and arousal disorder. I shared some of those in my book, Female Sexual Arousal and the Pink Pill. It's now on Amazon.com. But this is far more important to educate you if you're a clinician, a pharmacist, a pharmacologist, if you're an FDA official. Look at these documents. They're amazing that we were able to approve a drug that has significant side effects, serious and dangerous life-threatening side effects sometimes, because we missed out on the placebo factor in study 71. This is Dr. Caxton Perry. Have a wonderful day.